Shireen, the sweetness of beauty. It was the year 1877 in Iran. A young pregnant Zoroastrian woman named Golandun was returning home after selling some knitted woolen socks and bonnets to a rich family to augment her income for the child she was carrying. It was late afternoon and she was in a hurry to return home before sunset. Taking a shortcut, she passed through a narrow alley where a Muslim was sprinkling water in front of his entranceway. When Golandun was about to pass by the house, he shouted to her, "Stop, Kafir! You cannot pass by this sacred spot. Stay where you are and wait until the water evaporates. I will not allow you to move until every drop is dry." Golandun was helpless and stricken with fear. The lane would not be dry for several hours, and evening was fast approaching. She stood quietly as some Muslim boys appeared and taunted her with lewd remarks and mocking laughter. The young woman stood with tears in her eyes. As the ruffians began to threaten and approach her, she prayed to God with all her heart to save her honor. Suddenly, an elderly Muslim man carrying a cane happened to pass by the same alley and saw the young woman's plight. "How dare you!" he shouted to the gang and beat them with his cane. "Get out of here!" The man then consoled the frightened young woman and escorted her safely to her home. The grandfatherly figure bade her peace in the name of God, and Golandun thanked him graciously, comforted by his kindly manner. When Golandun narrated this incident to her husband Dorabji, he knew it was unsafe and unwise to remain in Iran and soon after made preparation to migrate to India. It was a difficult time to travel. Golandun was pregnant and already had a daughter named Dola, who was not yet 3 years old. Thus, it was not until several months had passed that Dorabji and his family were able to leave Iran for India. After settling in Bombay, Golandun gave birth to a second daughter, circa 9 October 1877, a beautiful baby whom she named Shireen, which means sweet, pleasant, or gentle. A few weeks after Shireen was born, the family moved from Bombay to Pune, where Dorabji opened a small tea shop. Although newly established, Dorabji quickly won the friendship of many. Dorabji was religious minded and regularly attended the Zoroastrian fire temple. He had a generous nature, helping the poor and giving medicinal herbs to the sick. He had the gift of healing. The many who came to him were cured by his potions. Dorabji was also jovial and sharp-witted. Once, while he was enjoying the company of a few friends, one of his patients came to see him, complaining of a severe cold. Dorabji knew the fellow to be a hypochondriac and fastidiously told him to take a cold bath, drink sour buttermilk, wrap up in a wet blanket, and sleep in a draught. Dorabji resumed his conversation, having no idea that the fellow, having such strong belief in Dorabji, would take him seriously and follow his obviously absurd advice. Several days later, when the two met again, Dorabji inquired after the man's health, and the fellow assured him that he was fine after following all of Dorabji's instructions. Dorabji was taken aback because such a routine could have resulted in pneumonia. From that day on, he was extremely careful when counseling people about their health. Dorabji loved his little daughter Shireen very much. She was quite intelligent and her beauty befitted her name. Shireen's sweet ways and conversation delighted her entire family. When she was 5 years old, she began her elementary schooling at the home of an Irani family. At this time, Shahryar was living with his sister in Pune. The dervish kept aloof and would spend his days in meditation and quietude. Occasionally, he would cause his sister anxiety by remarking that he was considering resuming his old life as a wandering mendicant. Firoza was a loving, innocent, and a gentle soul, whose love for her sadhu brother was deep. She did not want him to lose himself in what she considered an aimless life. Firoza would often tell Shahryar that he should get a job, marry a nice Zoroastrian girl, and settle down with a family. But Shahryar would politely avoid the topic of marriage. He had not given up his longing to realize God. Although he had heard God speak to him, he did not fully understand the message. Broken hearted, but not broken in spirit, Shahryar became restless to be alone again under the open sky with his heart's sole companion, searching for an answer to his profound dilemma. Shahryar earnestly implored, "Beloved Yazdan, what is your will?" One day in 1883, Shahryar was overcome with melancholy and gently told Piroza that the time for him to leave had come. Tears filled Piroza's eyes and she pleaded with her brother, "Don't go. Stay here in Pune. Why do you want to roam throughout India as a beggar? It is pointless. Stay here and get married. As your sister, I beg you, settle down." "But I'm not meant for such a life," Shahryar explained. "I cannot marry. It isn't my nature. I do not want to hear talk about marriage anymore." Firoza began weeping and Shahryar was moved by his sister's love. He knew that even if he explained his deepest longing, it would not console her. But the divine voice once again reverberated its message in his heart. "It is your son, Shahryar, your son. Through your son you will know me." To put an end on this subject and to satisfy his sister, Shahryar forced a smile and said, "Okay, if it is your wish that I get married and settle down with a family, I'm willing to do so. Let there be no further discussion on this topic. But there is one condition. I should have the liberty to marry the girl of my choice, not one of your choice. And only if the girl I select is willing, will I marry. If she refuses, then you should promise never to bring up the subject of my marriage and family life ever again and allow me to go on my way." Although this was an unusual condition, Shahryar's determined, devout, and good natured sister agreed and inquired if he had any such girl in mind. Glancing out the window, Shahryar said yes. When asked who she was, he pointed to a small, charming Irani girl wearing a white frock and loose red trousers, who happened to be passing their house. It was little Shireen on her way to her lessons. Her eyes were lowered and she was carrying a slate and a few books under her arms. "If I ever marry," Shahryar declared, "I will marry that girl alone. Otherwise, I will never marry." "Have some shame, brother, before uttering such things," Firoza admonished him. Since the age difference between Shahryar 30 and the girl 5 was too great. Knowing Shahryar as she did, Firoza felt that this was a ploy on his part to avoid marriage and the burden of bringing up a family. He knew the acceptance of such a proposal was preposterous. No parent would ever give their innocent young daughter in marriage to a person such as Shahryar, who was not only unemployed but was an ascetic living a pure life away from worldly attractions. Firoza tried to talk some sense into her brother, but he was adamant and steadfast in his resolve. As per the promise given by him, he was prepared to marry that girl alone and no one else. Firoza was helpless and had to give in. She thought, why not try? If it is in their destiny to come together, God will make it happen. Shahryar thought, there is no harm in what I have said because, after all, who is going to agree to let a little girl marry a man of my age? He felt relieved that he had found a way to stop his troublesome discussion about marriage. However, just the opposite reaction took place in Firoza. Her determination to see her brother married, instead of being quashed by her brother's statement, was intensified. She hurried from the house to her friend Golandoon, fell on her knees and pleaded with tears streaming down her face. "Golandoon, you are my dear friend. Today I have come to beg from you. Will you do me a great favor?" Firoza appeared desperate and Golandoon pitied her. "What is the matter? What happened?" she inquired anxiously. Why do you look so unhappy? Tell me what is wrong. Save my brother, Piroza cried. Only you can save my brother and assure my happiness. Confused, Golandun inquired, what is it you want me to do? How can I help your brother? Piroza beseeched her. My brother's marriage to your Shireen. I know how it sounds, but you must agree. I have come to beg this of you. Moved by her plight, Golandun, out of pity for her friend, said without thinking, yes, I promise. The two ladies embraced. Piroza's joy knew no bounds. She felt as if she had won a great victory. Bursting with happiness, she hastened home to convey the good news to Sheria. My friend Golandun, the mother of the little girl you saw, has promised her in marriage to you. Sheriar's reaction was that of stoic resignation to God's will, and he accepted what had happened. He had made a promise to his sister. He could not go back on his word. However, when Shireen's father Dorabji came to know of the arrangements, he became furious with his wife. They quarreled for days over the matter, but there was nothing he could do, for Golandun had also given her promise, and a promise was not to be broken. She had given her word. Besides, Golandun admired Sheriar and was not worried about marrying her daughter to such a saintly person. Dorabji, on the contrary, could not bring himself to accept such a preposterous arrangement. However, good a man Sheriar appeared, he was not the type of husband he had in mind for his favorite daughter. Young Shireen, of course, had no idea what was going on. She was overjoyed when the stranger put on her finger a shiny silver engagement ring, which she would show to her playmates. Sometimes she would be naughty, and if Sheriar happened to see her, he would correct her. Shireen would complain to her mother, who is this man to tell me what to do? 9 years passed before Golandun's promise to Piroza was fulfilled. Sheriar and Shireen were married according to Zoroastrian custom in 1892. At that time, the bridegroom was 39 and the bride was only 14. Piroza and Golandun rejoiced, but Dorabji still found the arrangement unacceptable and protested by refusing to attend the wedding. Sheriar, whose nature was exceptionally good and kind, adapted well to married life. He now had a healthy and strong physique. In order to support his wife, Sheriar needed employment. At first, he sold cloth door to door. He served as a gardener, then as a cook, and later moved to a more prominent position as the manager of a bungalow at a salary of rupees 100 per month. Sheriar, however, was never interested in the world or business solely for the sake of money. The holy name of Yazdan was constantly on his lips, and he never vacillated under any circumstances. He would tell his young bride, whatever happens is all God's will. Whatever happened was to happen, and whatever is to happen will happen. It is God who does everything. Nevertheless, he knew he could not shirk his family responsibilities and dutifully carried out the necessary tasks in providing for a household. Shireen found her husband to be witty and humorous as well. During the early years of their marriage, Sheriar taught Shireen Persian, reading the Divan of Hafiz and the Shahnameh to her. He loved his young wife dearly and tried his best to please her, and she too came to love him and affectionately called him Shorog. Sheriar had been a strict vegetarian for many years during his life as a dervish, and after his marriage, he remained so. In Irani families, meat is the mainstay of their diets, so preparing separate vegetarian food for Sheriar was a problem for Shireen's mother, Golandun, who did the cooking. Shireen was pregnant and in her condition needed rest. Golandun confided to Shireen that if she cut little pieces of meat and mixed them in with the husband's food, he would not know. Shireen agreed to this plan. One day, she prepared dal with tiny pieces of goat, mutton in it and served it to Sheriar. who could taste that it contained meat. His ascetic vow was broken, and when he was told that the dal contained meat, he told Shireen with a heavy heart, "Child, may God forgive you, for you do not know what you have done." That night, Shireen dreamed that two gigantic African men were standing over her with whips in their hands. One grabbed her and held her down, while the other tried to force her to drink from a cup. Shireen looked into the cup and saw that it was filled with blood. She shook her head and screaming, "No, no, I won't drink it! I won't!" One man angrily raised his whip to strike her. Terrified, she began weeping for mercy. At that moment, she awakened. The next morning, when Shireen narrated this nightmare to her mother, Golandun understood its meaning and, repenting for having persuaded Shireen to deceive her husband, said, "God forgive us." But from that day onward, Sheriar gave up vegetarianism and ate whatever type of food Shireen served.